I was not expecting this on a Sunday afternoon. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Jerry Hamilton and Jeff Howe. Matthew Caldwell, right-hander out of Troy, Troy University in Alabama, by way of both Gardner-Webb and Jacksonville State, has signed with the University of Texas. He's a quarterback that adds depth to the Longhorn quarterback room. It is a young quarterback room at Texas with Arch Manning, the only one having seen any legitimate time. Trey Owens, a redshirt freshman. KJ Lacey, a true freshman. The Longhorns add quarterback Matthew Caldwell. This comes as a little bit of surprise to us, but let's give a little bit of a breakdown of Matthew Caldwell. He signed with Jacksonville State out of high school. Jacksonville State was his only scholarship offer. Played a little bit there as a true freshman, then moved on to Gardner-Webb before ending up at Troy last year, where he started the last 5 games of his season. He went 141 of 223 for 1,608 yards, 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He was once the conference player of the week for his efforts. Even started against Iowa last season as well. Again, Matthew Caldwell has committed to the University of Texas. Jerry, I'm going to go to you. What does this say about what Texas needed and wanted to do for Steve Sarkisian, A.J. Milwee, Brandon Harris, and those guys at the quarterback position?
I think it's a twofold. One, Texas haven't had a healthy starting quarterback all season since Sark has been in Austin. Period.
Yeah.
Period. And they want to redshirt KJ Lacey, right? And this gives them a depth option there with a guy who's played a lot of football. Because look, the reality is, if you're playing a long season, the schedule Texas is playing, like if heaven forbid Arch goes down for a couple of games, you're sitting there now. You have Trey Owens and Matthew Caldwell. So I think they're really protecting themselves against injury, because the reality for Sark is he looks around and said, my starting quarterback hasn't made it through the season all season once since he's been in Austin. And you have to guard against that and protect against that. And if you have the extra spot, why not? I think also redshirting KJ Lacey is a big part of this as well in case of QB injuries.
Hey, Jeff, got to ask you, what about experience here? Isn't that a big factor too, in your opinion? He's got 1 year left. He's a 5th-year guy, so he's a grad transfer, technically. What are your thoughts about that being a piece of this? Because otherwise, I mean, Lacey and Owens have absolutely no experience beyond just, field goal holds, and that's like handing the ball off to end the game, that sort of thing.
Yeah, trust me, this is not an insult when I say this, but this is a CYA take.
Yes.
This is a deal where, please understand, I'm knocking on wood when I say this too. If, Arch steps, wrong and, turns an ankle in Gainesville, and you need somebody to get you through a quarter, you've at least got someone who stepped on a college field and has some experience with some high leverage snaps that can get you through maybe a possession or two until you can figure out what's wrong with your starter. So, yeah, I think experience, Bobby, I think that honestly to me is the biggest part of it, because that would be the worst thing. Number one is to throw Trey Owens or KJ Lacey into an environment where they don't have any experience and you're really throwing them to the wolves. Number two, I think this is another indication that Sark is looking at the most potentially minuscule details and saying, I'm not going to overlook something that's going to cost us a national championship. In other words, if Texas doesn't win a national championship in 2025, it's not going to be because I wish we would have taken a more experienced quarterback out of the portal when we had an available scholarship. So I just love the fact that Sark is covering all bases.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm told that Auburn tried to make a little bit of a run here. He is from Auburn, Alabama as well. This isn't a situation where we think he's going to go in and compete with Arch Manning. This is a situation where he's going to try to compete with Trey Owens and KJ Lacey for the backup job. And to y'all's point, he has that experience level there. Look, numbers are what they are. He started 6 games overall. Like I said, 141 of 223, 63% completion rate, 13 TDs, 8 interceptions, but also had 5 runs. Another thing that we should talk about here is Texas going to need more quarterbacks if Arch Manning's going to run the ball more? That's another thing to be thinking about as that occurs. But any other comments on this one, Jerry? As we also need to say boom to somebody else that happened over the weekend as well before we move on.
Yeah, look, I think what have we said a few times, that Sark is pushing all the chips to the middle of the table.
Yeah,
look, you don't make this move if you don't feel like you have a team that's going to compete for a title. If that's the reality. They're like, we can't leave any stone unturned. We have a very talented roster, and we believe we have a chance to go for it all this year. That's the only way you make this move, is so you're covering your bases in case of injury. You put a lot into this roster. It's very talented, top to bottom, and we've talked about it. I mean, look, this is a head coach in Steve Sarkisian that he's going for broke every year. And that's the way he's looking at every season. And you have to cover yourself, dude. And again, I mean, I just go back to, in the offseason, he thought about, well, year one, I had 2 quarterbacks go down. I'm in the Alabama game. Quinn goes down. Hudson Card almost goes down. And we have a walk-on warming up that's literally maybe a commercial break away from having to play against Alabama. Right. And he's just not going to put himself in that scenario this year. Bottom line, while preserving KJ Lacey's red shirt.
Bobby, would you like to know probably the tie that binds Texas and Matthew Caldwell if they wanted to get some intel? If you look at the Troy coaching staff, Sean Reagan is the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach. Sean Reagan GA'd at Texas Tech in 2010 when Neil Brown was the offensive coordinator for Tommy Tuberville.
Yeah,
he was on Neil Brown's staffs at Troy and West Virginia.
Gotcha. There's at least some tie. Neil Brown was the head coach at Troy for a little bit too. I was told, like I said, Auburn made a little bit of a run here. He is I don't want to call him an emergency quarterback, because I do think that Trey Owens is going to be one of those guys that has maybe more talent than Matthew Caldwell. At the same time, Texas obviously wanted to go out and get Matthew Caldwell. We'll see what occurs. Other recruiting news real quick. There are a couple of news and notes. We want to say boom, belated this one, to Trot O'Neal, the deep snapper out of Plano's Prestonwood Christian. We did not do an individual video for him, but he committed to the Longhorns over the weekend. Trot O'Neal. Jerry, he is 6'2", 225, Prestonwood Christian. He's ranked in one of the top 5 deep snappers in the country. Yeah. Texas is going to run out of time with Lance St. Louis this coming year as a deep snapper and a scholarship deep snapper. So Trot O'Neal is that guy for them at that position now. He is a deep snapper.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, one of the best deep snappers in the country. He's been on campus multiple times. You mentioned it. Air Force was another offer. But look, Jeff Banks has taken a long look here, had multiple snappers come through, and they decided this is the guy that they want. And look, is in the 26 class, this is a need position for Texas. I mean, it's not going to be talked about a lot. It's not going to be publicized a lot, but you're graduating a very experienced guy, and you feel like you're bringing in one of the best in the country. And again, any position on a football field can help win you a title or cost you a title. And they got to go get the very best they can. And he's a Prestonwood Christian guy.
Yeah, I think it's fair, right, that we said Texas may go portal from now on punter and kicker, but it's going to be hard to go portal on deep snapper. That's going to be hard to do. So the specialist this year, it looks like Trot O'Neal. This puts Texas as 84 commitment, or 84, by the way. The addition of Matthew Caldwell puts Texas at 84 scholarships. They've got 1 scholarship left at this time. So we'll see what if Brandon Harris and his group actually find another piece to the puzzle. But this is a smart this addition of Matthew Caldwell just reeks of being smart, in my opinion, right, and judicious. To your point, Jerry, your very first comment is this is what you do if you're making sure all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed. I think that's a fair statement.
Well, and look, I mean, I think you also have to think about this way: is the what if you don't want to talk about scenario, you lose your starting quarterback for an extended period of time. Well, now you would go to Trey Owens 1 and KJ Lacey 2 in that scenario. Neither one. I mean, Trey Owens has thrown 4 passes. KJ Lacey obviously just got there. Well, just go back to that Alabama game I was talking about. Quinn's down. Hudson Card's limping around. Jeff, you were there covering it. Everybody thought they were going to have to go to a walk-on at that point.
Yeah.
Sark is not one to be in a position, like you said, at Florida or at Georgia or heaven forbid late in the year when A&M comes to town or something like that, and you're in a must-win game where you have really bad luck like that Alabama game, and you're sitting there bringing a true freshman in for his first throw ever in a very meaningful situation and very meaningful game with everything on the line. I think Sark's protecting himself against that scenario. It's kind of funny to me that Matthew Caldwell picked Texas over Auburn, being from Auburn, Alabama. That I don't know why. That's just kind of – I know Auburn made a move on him. That's kind of funny to me that, the Auburn quarterback situation has to be much more inviting for a guy that's transferring for a final year.
All right,
yeah,
so
I'll add this too. When you look at his year last year, Jerry, you made a point that I'll get back to in just a sec, but you look at what he did last year, Bobby, 2 pretty good games at the end of the year against 2 of the better teams in the Sun Belt. He went 26 for 33 for 288 and 2 touchdowns against Georgia Southern on the road. And then Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns who won the league, he goes 26 for 42 on the road, 4 touchdowns, did throw 2 picks, but it's not like Matthew Caldwell has more big time experience as a quarterback than Velton Gardner did as a running back when Texas took him in kind of a break glass in case of emergency scenario last year. And to your point, Jerry, I think the genesis of that, if you go back the year before, and Sark said after that K-State game, if you think about that, Casey Thompson was already hurt with the thumb. Hudson Card got hurt against West Virginia. That game was on a Friday against K-State. As of that Tuesday, Sark didn't know who he was going to have a quarterback. They had to put in the Wildcat package for Roschon Johnson because he was prepared for that to be their offense. And he said after the game, he said, I never want to get in that situation again. So I know that's kind of like dire worst case scenario, but to your point, yeah, Sark's not going to let a lapse of judgment on his part with the roster management be the reason why Texas falls short this year.
Yeah, it's the one position on the field you got to have somebody. You can't just you can't hide the quarterback, guys. You really can't. Don Vito says went to high school with Jeff in Florence.
Wow.
Texas was a freshman when he was a senior. Jeff's senior class had all the big guys that year and did well. Glad to see you on this channel, Jeff Hookham. From Don Vito. Thank you for the super chat. Hey, other recruiting news. We mentioned Trot O'Neal committing to Texas. The deep snapper out of Plano, Prestonwood Christian. He'll be a class of 2026 member. Earlier today, yesterday, Javion Osborne, the running back committed to Notre Dame out of Forney. Texas at one point in time was one of his favorites. Just a real quick, brief synopsis on where Texas is with running back recruiting, if you don't mind, Jerry, now that what we thought was going to happen actually happened and Osborne committed to Notre Dame.
Yeah, and Osborne and Texas kind of gone separate ways a couple of months ago, right after Chad Scott hire. Texas has 3 OVs scheduled right now with running backs. That's KJ Edwards, who visited Colorado this weekend. He is June 6th through 8. Xavier Crowell, June 6th through 8. He was an Alabama lean. Edwards, I believe, is a Texas lean. Then you have Amari Latimer, June 13th through 15th out of Sandy Creek, Georgia, one of the best power backs in the country, waiting for the official date locked in for Derek Cooper, the 5-star out of Chaminade, Madonna in Hollywood, Florida. We know he's going to make an official visit to Texas. We're also we're waiting on that date because Texas Sark doesn't like the midweek visits in June. He wants the big weekend effect visit. Right. Derek Cooper's going to have to shuffle his schedule around to make that happen. The other thing I would say is Yaheem Riley, the nickel out of Austin Anderson, now locked in for June 13th for his official visit. Texas is the favorite if they make the big push there for Yaheem Riley. And we're waiting I'm waiting on a call back on Tyler Atkinson, the 5-star linebacker out of Grayson. If he is going to set up a June official visit, I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's a lock. I'm waiting on a call back on that to see exactly what's going to transpire there. Texas also working to get Xavier Griffin, the other 5-star linebacker in the Atlanta area at Gainesville, who's committed to USC. getting his official visit date locked in, but that's looking like that will happen. It's just a matter of what that weekend will be.
Frightening Truth had something good to say. Oh, you tried to hide their quarterback one year. They tried to run the they tried to take, was it General Booty out of the game and go with what they had there. All right, Matthew.
Yeah, you never want to have to start Davis Bevel in a Red River rivalry game.
No, I think they're going to try
against going with zero experience.
All right, we'll be back later tonight, 7 o'clock with the live stream. Please join us if you would. Myself, Jerry Hamilton, Rod Babers, all going to be there. We'll talk more about Matthew Caldwell, the latest pledge. Brandon Harris, the personnel department, kind of reaching into the bag of tricks and trying to figure out what they need to do to put the finishing touches on the 2025 roster. A starting quarterback from Troy is now one of the backups for Arch Manning. So interesting situation here. All right, for Jeff Howe and Jerry Hamilton, one last word for you, Matthew Caldwell. Hook 'em, buddy.
Hook 'em.